Good afternoon, everyone. This is Paul Perdue from Attorney Computer Systems with the April 2009 Tabs3 PracticeMaster Virtual User Group, renamed this month the Water Cooler. We'll tell you more about that later. I am going to show you very quickly an article that I would like everybody to go get. They don't have to go get it now, but I think it would be a good idea if people know that they can go to support.tabs3.com. Just type that in. It'll take you to this screen, and if you look at the bottom of the first screen you get to, you can click on What's New lists, and we can see what's new in version 15. That is what Mary Jo and I will be working from today. So if you'd like to go out and print that right now, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too, but it will be handy later on to take a look at all the changes that were made in 15.1. I am going to unmute everyone right now with the understanding that, oh, there's Ann, she's laughing. With the understanding that everybody needs to be quiet to a certain extent, but we like the virtual user group meetings to be very interactive. Everyone is now unmuted, so if that heavy breathing, that must be my brother Bill. If anybody has any questions or anything at all that they'd like to interject, just speak up. And if we get somebody that doesn't know that they're unmuted, maybe that comes in later, that starts talking, we'll just mute them temporarily. Okay, we're talking about what's new in version 15. By now, all of you should have received a CD in the mail, or if you were in the last batch that was sent out, let's say a week and a half ago, they do go third-class mail, which is what we used to affectionately call bulk rate, and they may not be there yet. If anybody that is listening right now does not have version 15.1 on a CD in their offices, give me a call or send me an email, and we will make sure that that gets fixed and that you get that disk. I'm going to start. We're going to do this kind of like we did the last virtual user group meeting. Mary Jo and I are going to trade off. I'm going to start by explaining one of the more boring aspects of 15.1. It is now totally Vista compatible. If you, like I, have Windows Vista, then you are used to the fact in the old version 14 that there are a lot of things that didn't work right. We are now compatible with what's called user account control. We are now compatible with having an INI file that doesn't require administrator rights for the system to get to. And we are now compatible with help. If you had Vista in version 14 and tried to do help, you know that it didn't work. You could download a patch from Microsoft that would fix that, but the new help files in version 15.1 are fully Vista compatible, so there's no patch required to use that. Okay, and now I'm going to introduce Mary Jo, and she's going to talk about our next topic.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about a new feature we have in Tabs and PracticeMaster and General Ledger, Trust Accounting, and Accounts Payable for report headings. When you went into reports before, you were limited to whatever the report was called. If you were in an AR report and you were doing a detail AR report, that's what the heading was that came out on your screen when you printed that report. But now they've got an option that when you go in and you want to save a file definition of your report, you have the definition name, but then you also have the option to type in a description. So if you wanted to call this AR report for a specific timekeeper or a different specific date range or something like that, and you wanted to go ahead and save that, you also have the option then to display that description in the report header, and then that will print on the report when you print it off. So it's just one of those added features. You don't necessarily have to have that criteria page, go back and refer to that anymore. You can just go ahead and save it in the terms that you want to and print it with the heading that you want to. Oh.
Okay. Another new feature is autofill, and I am going to type, let's see, who's a client in here? Larson, L-A-R, and as I do that, it immediately starts to fill the field in with my available options. So gone are the days when you type LAR and hope that you're finding Michael Larson. The system will now autofill and tell you what your available options are for the letters that you've already typed. You'll notice that the autofill to the left is what I typed, and the stuff that's still highlighted is what it's picking as what you would choose if you were to hit enter right now. So autofill just lets you know that you are typing something and that it knows what you're typing. Another helpful new thing is what we call incremental search, and you all are used to this from here. If we go into this drop down here, we can do incremental search. For instance, if we're on name search, which we can tell we are because of this triangle, and we type PET, it'll pull up the incremental search box and take me to the first occurrence of PET. If I decide I want to sort by client name or by work description, which is what I'm sorting by now, and I type FOR, it'll take me to the first occurrence of FOR, which is for tracking all firm-related information. But if I wanted to go to foreclosure and I typed the E, it would take me there. We're used to that. At least we should be, because it's been there for a long time. But it has now been spread to just about every place that you can look for something. For instance, if I go into transaction codes, how many of you have ever come in here and wanted to find the, let's say, filing fee? You don't know what number it is, but you want to edit the description. We're in T-code setup. You can't type, at least in the old system, you couldn't type FF in here, and you still can't. But if you drop down the incremental search and sort on alpha, or even sort on description, you can now type FIL, and it'll take you right to filing fee. So gone are the days when you have to come in here and just kind of scan through this list looking for whatever it is that you're looking for. You can now identify which column you want to type the incremental search on, and then go ahead and type that. Okay? Mary Jo?
Okay, I'm going to tell you about a really cool thing that I think is awesome. This is one of those little things that just kind of bugged you in version 14 that they've kind of fixed. So what I'm going to do, we're going to go into, let's just say a report. And I'll just do the AR report again. Go into Detail AR report. And if you ran this report before and you wanted to preview it first, you always had to, you had the ability to preview, but when you went to go print, the default box was always on current page. And if you forgot to change that and you hit OK, you'd only get the first page instead of the whole report. Well, now they fixed that, and now it's defaulting to all pages. So when you come in here to print a report from a preview view, you can automatically have all pages to do. And I think that's really awesome, because I don't know how many times I've hit that button and printed one page instead of all. The other thing, while I'm in a preview screen, any of the preview screens that that you go into now has a zoom function. And if you hit, Control plus, I can get the zoom to come in bigger. Or there's, if you hit Control minus, I can make that smaller. So there's all these different control keys that you can toggle between. If I want to just go between 100% and fit to window, I can do that. Here's my 100%. And then I can also go back into the different sizes. So you have that zoom function available now on preview windows.
Okay. I'm going to skip over to a different copy of Tabs3 that is actually our real copy to show the new View Active User List. This has been changed quite a bit. Now, we've always had all systems and just the system we're in. We're currently in Tabs, so this is showing the Tabs users, and this is showing all systems. But you've always had this problem of, especially with PracticeMaster, somebody can have, and this is true in Tabs too, somebody can have multiple things open. And it may list them as being in 6 different things, but you can't tell if there are 2 people signed in. Let's say Paul Perdue signed in on one system as Paul Perdue, and on another system as Paul Perdue, even though he's not supposed to be, or maybe he got locked out of the first system and it thinks he's in there. You now have this summary option, and what that does is it shows the different instances of the user, not all the functions they're in, but just different users. And as you can see, Paul Perdue happens to be logged in as P. Perdue on 2 separate machines. It even shows you what computer name they're on, and that will help you now to be able to say, oh, Bob left himself logged in on the library computer, and now I need to go, that's the one that I'm trying to find him on to get him out of the system. Okay. Mary Jo, calculator?
Okay. I have, we have a new option in Tabs, and I'm going to close this and go back out.
I'm sorry, I'm going to actually take you over to the other tabs, Mary Jo.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Are we there now?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go into my client screen and into a fee window just to show you this. And any any box that you have any way to calculate, a rate box, an amount box, units, hour fields, we now have a pop-up calculator available. And if I just come in here and I want to add, I can hit the plus sign when I'm on this, the amount. Whoops, sorry, I got to choose a client. Let's get somebody in here. Sorry about that. All right, we'll get Michael Larson here. And when I'm in a fee box, if I click on that field and I want to add something to it, I can go ahead and hit the plus sign. And now I've got a little calculator box that opens up, and I can do any kind of calculations here if I needed to add to the rate or multiply the rate by a certain amount or divide it by a certain amount, or same thing with hours worked or the amount box. I have that option in any of these fields to pop up a box and do some calculations right there in the field. So any box that has an amount field, you can have this feature available. So the calculators throughout the whole program. Paul?
Okay. This is one that has always been a real pain for me. In the older versions of the software, if you typed, this is demo data, so it thinks today is 11/17/09. If I typed in older versions of the software 12-1, it would be considered an invalid date. Now it assumes the current year. But beyond that, I typed and I said 12-1, but it put a slash in. So we can now use dashes and slashes, and we don't need to type 12-01. We can type 12-1 and it'll know what we mean. We can also click on a certain aspect of the date and use the, well, take a liar out of me, and use the is greater than or is less than that we may be used to from before. Of course, just as it was before, we can also hit D in here, but now we can also hit T for today. So if I get it to something other than today, remember it thinks today's 12/19, 12/17, or 11/17, sorry. If I hit T, it'll put it to today. So T now does what T used to do, but beyond that, we can now just type 1-1 and it'll know what we mean, or 1-1-10 and it'll know what we mean. It tells me it's not the current year, but it knows what we mean when I do that. Okay? Also, in the old versions or older versions of the software, if I was here, you'll notice I have two Tabs3 running down here. That's a special instance that we forced it to happen. But in old versions of the software, if we started a second instance of Tabs3, it would let us do that. And it would ask us to log in, and when we tried to log in, it would tell us that there was already a user signed in under that name, and we might ignore that and go in, and we might be logged into Tabs twice. In version 15, if you start Tabs3 and Tabs3 is actually already running on your machine, it will simply switch to the currently running copy of Tabs3 instead of loading multiple instances. One other thing that I have, do I? Oh, also, in version 15, well, let me start with version 14 and all prior versions. If you had a multi-user version and you had a server and you loaded it on that server and you had 25 people that could all run that copy of the software from the server, every time somebody came in the morning and started the software, it would actually go out to the server and pull the program files off the server through the thin network cable and load those programs from the server. Now, what that means, if you have a larger office with, let's say, 25 workstations, when everybody gets in at 9 o'clock or 8:30 and everybody clicks on PracticeMaster to load it, the whole network slows down because everybody's pulling those programs down the wire. The new version 15.1 now supports a local installation, and by that I mean when you set it up right, it will actually copy those program files down to your local machine so that every morning when you come in, you are running the programs from your local machine, not tying up network traffic and network bandwidth to pull those programs down the line. That also means that if somebody performs an update on the server, that update needs to be pulled down to your local machine, so there's now routines that recognize that there's a new version on the server, and if you pull up a program and there is a newer version on the server, it will simply pull it down and reinstall it on your machine for you automatically. Okay, Mary Jo?
I'm going to talk about the support log.
This is my test alarm, sorry.
Exactly. I'm going to talk about the support log. You've always had the support log available. If you go up to View and Log Files to the support log, it would bring up and show you everything that has been changed or updated on your file. And obviously we're in sample data right now, so let me come down here a little bit. But if anybody had advanced the current reporting month, or anybody had accessed client file information and changed anything, you have all those listed out. But what 15 has done is any program that is run that affects all programs, like backing up your data files or restoring data files, those are now available just on a separate page, and it's, in this case, on the first page, so that you can see those easier. And then, of course, everything else is still how it used to be. Along those lines, as far as support logs and error logs, we've also have new error reporting capabilities. You now have the option to go ahead and set up to report a fatal error automatically to software technology, to their tech department. You can configure that to do that automatically, or you can tell it on a as an individual basis that you want to send the error report to STI. That they do not get any of your firm information or any of that. They're just getting the error log so that they can see what's happened and keep track of that, so they can make any changes if they need to on what's happening with the software. So you do have that automatic capability to send that error message to STI for them to address.
And I would point out that that information is extremely valuable to them. They can see things that they could never, in the past versions, have anticipated seeing, simply by recognizing trends that normally wouldn't get reported to them. So,
and I'd also like to add real quick that they're not going to call you back to fix that error. They're not going to contact you or anything like that. It's just sending it to them so that they can see that information. If you still have to get that resolved, either by going to help and finding out what the error is, or calling us, and we can help you get through that.
Exactly. Right. So. They don't know who you are, but they can use that information so that if they see all of a sudden that 100 people are getting a certain error when they do a certain thing, they can more quickly resolve that issue for you, even though they don't know who you are, so not specifically for you, just for the community as a whole. Okay, I'm going to talk about credit card authorization. We've had a lot of people asking about this. First, I'll tell you that software technology has struck a deal, if you will, with First National Merchant Services in Omaha, Nebraska. They did not choose them because they're an hour away from Lincoln, Nebraska. They chose them because they're one of the 10 largest providers of merchant services and credit card merchant services accounts in the country. They are also very technologically advanced, much more so than other providers, and so they chose them for that reason. They went to them and said, we can get all these people that have been asking us for credit card processing to use your service if you will give us a very good rate. So they did that. They got that, a very good negotiated rate. And I have found on all instances where I have referred people to them, and I've heard back, at least, that the credit card rate that they are offering through First National Merchant Services is indeed better than what they were currently getting, that client was currently getting from their other credit card merchant services provider. I'd also like to point out that you do not have to switch banks. You do need to switch merchant account providers, but not banks. It's just a matter of setting up First National Merchant Services so that they are able to deposit the money straight into your bank account, the same bank account you've always had. With that said, and I'd also really quickly like to point out that this isn't something that you buy separately or that you add on. It's just something that's included in Tabs so that if you want to, you can make use of it. I'm going to take you real quickly to customization and show you now. Only I'm going to do that in our copy of the software, and show you merchant services where I've enabled it and merely set up a client ID, a description of the account, a user ID, and a password, and indicated what credit cards I take. You can have a firm-wide account. You can also have separate accounts for different locations, and you can also have separate accounts for timekeepers. Some firms are really loosely associated partnerships or loosely associated organizations, and each individual timekeeper has his or her own merchant account to process their payments. This will support that. This is an alarm that I have to show you something in a couple of minutes. And Mary Jo is laughing because I'm always snoozing alarms, even if they're fake. I'm going to take you in, and we're going to make a payment. we'll just have to tell you right now that since this is live data, that Vince owes us $37 for something I did for him the other day. And I'm going to go make a payment. I'm going to pay that $37. I am going to simply press F2 to have that populated, and here I'm going to say credit card. This is, as you all can see, you may have your windows looking a little differently, but it's pretty much exactly the way payments are always entered. But when I save this, it's going to pop this up. And it's going to give me an opportunity to swipe the card if I've got a card reader. There is a keyboard attachment that you can purchase and put on your keyboard and swipe the card. And I'll tell you right now that the rates are more attractive for card present transactions as opposed to card not present. But I'll also tell you that most of our clients are processing what we call card not present, where they've gotten this card number simply read to them over the phone or faxed back to them as part of a credit card payment form that they may have at the bottom of their statements. So if you don't have a card to swipe, you simply fill in the details, put in the security code, put in an expiration date, you need to specify a name. It already knows the business name and billing address, but you can change those things. It just pulls them in for convenience because it knows who the client is. And I'm going to submit this, and it's going to fail. It's going to fail because I don't really have, I have a bogus account set up in here. It may have failed because the card was declined. It may have failed because I got some detail in incorrectly. But the point is, if it fails, once I acknowledge that, if I get out of here, it gives me the opportunity to return to the card information window, retain the payment without it being a credit card payment, or delete it. Because you may not have noticed, but I saved this. I've already saved this payment, so I'm going to elect to delete it. The payment will be gone. So bottom line is, you can enter your payments as normal. When you select credit card from this drop-down right here, it will automatically pop up the window for you to process. Of course, we hope that everything will automatically process good for you and everything will be accepted, and it will merely take you back to the window to add the next payment. If we process a payment and 2 days later we need to refund that payment, and we come in and we delete the payment because we still haven't printed the final bill, it will automatically void that for us. If we're past the period where we can't automatically void it anymore because it's already processed, then it will automatically issue a voiding or a credit or a refund to that credit card transaction. So all the things that go along with this, meaning that the payments not only are processed automatically, but they also are refunded automatically or voided automatically, comes into play. And it's basically all, at this point, just built into your credit card processing within Tabs3. Okay, Mary Jo?
I'm going to talk real quick about the shared fee table. If you're using a shared, which one am I in? Oh, get me the right. Paul's flipping me through too many tab screens here.
Yep, sorry.
Okay. If you use shared rate tables, if we go into a client and you have a shared rate table set up, let me get into one here. Okay. If you have a rate table that you're using and it is shared, what you want to do before, when you put in a new effective rate, it would only change that effective rate for the host rate table. Now, if you go ahead and put in effective rate, it will change that rate for all of the tables that are shared with that main host client. So that's something new that we have. So those effective rates are now available for all of the shared, not just the host. Paul?
Okay. Renumbering clients. Client renumbering used to take a long, long time, let's say maybe 5 or 10 minutes, as opposed to what it does now. It's much, much faster. It's as fast as 10 times faster than it used to be, so it's something that that merely has been speeded up incredibly. It also, in the client-server version, is now something that's covered by transaction processing. And if, for those of you that have client-server version, that means that you no longer have to get people out of the software to renumber clients if you have CSV, only if you have CSV. And it's now being covered by transaction processing, meaning that if the power is interrupted while you're renumbering a client, it will automatically auto-recover for you. Okay? And one of these little teeny things that may or may not excite you, we have increased the phone number extension fields in the existing fields from, I believe, 3 to 5 digits. Maybe it was 4 to 5 digits. So those of you who've ever tried to put a phone extension in one of the hard-coded fields and tabs, and it's been 5 digits and you've been frustrated by that, that won't be the case anymore because they are now 5 digits long. Okay, Mary Jo?
I'm going to talk to you about duplicate client ID control. Before, if you had two people that were entering a new client at the exact same time, they would be allowed to enter all the information in, and then the first person that saved it actually got that client number, and then the other person who had entered all their information and saved after the fact would end up losing their information because it would pop up a box that said, sorry, that ID is taken. We had the situation at one of our college labs where we had several students entering clients at the same time, and so you could have, 20 or 40 kids in there, entering things, and all of a sudden, they would lock up because they would lose their information on the client because they hadn't saved it first. The workaround we used to do for version 14 is say, go ahead and assign a number, save right away, and then go ahead and start entering information so that number's already taken. Well, version 15 has resolved that issue, and now you can go ahead and enter your client number in, and if somebody else across the office is entering in that same client number, it will automatically, before you enter any information in, pop up a box and say that's already that client ID is already taken, and give you the opportunity to get another client ID. So it just saves a little time there, and you don't lose all of your information if somebody else entered at the same time. Paul?
And along those same lines, we now have complete field-level conflict resolution built into PracticeMaster. Picture this scenario. John loads Mr. Smith's PracticeMaster record and changes his phone number. He leaves the computer the way on that screen and goes to lunch. While he's at lunch, Mary pulls up that client's record and changes the phone number to something different. Mary makes the save to her record, and then she goes to lunch, but she saved the record and gotten off that screen. John comes back from lunch and goes to save the record, and he has just replaced the correct phone number, changed that Mary did, with the incorrect number that John put in there, and Mary's change is wiped out. John has no idea that while he had this on his screen, Mary came in and changed the number. He doesn't get any error message. That's the old way. The new way is that if somebody changes a field that somebody else has already changed, John goes ahead and makes a change. He leaves it on the screen. He doesn't save his record. He goes to lunch. Mary changes the field to what it should be. She saves it. She's fine. John comes back from lunch, goes to get off that screen. It says, do you want to save your changes? He says, oh, yeah, I forgot. He hits yes. And it pops up and says, Mary, in the meantime, has changed this field to this value. Do you want to change yours? And so it gives John the ability to say, oh, well, no, let me check with Mary, or let him know that that field has been changed subsequently, and prevents the possible overwriting of data without anybody knowing that that's happened. Very important. It's something that we've needed for a little while in certain instances, and now we've got it. Something that I'll just touch on, we've expanded the task code format for task bill. It's been increased from 4 characters to 5 characters. That can now be 2 alpha characters and 3 numeric characters. For those of you that are using task bill, you'll know what that means. For those of you that aren't, don't worry about it. And in the CSV version, which again I have to qualify only in the CSV version, there's been an addition to PracticeMaster called eNote, which is basically an instant messaging service for PracticeMaster users that is secure, that is internal, doesn't go outside your company's network, that can tie in records from PracticeMaster. For instance, you can send the Jones case over to Phil, and say, Phil, take a look at this. I'm meeting with Mr. Jones this afternoon. Let me know what you think. And when Phil gets that e-note popping up instantly, he can click on that link and open up the Jones case and go right into it. So I won't dwell on this because I know that a lot of people don't have the CSV version. But if you do, there is now an instant messaging feature built right into PracticeMaster. Mary Jo?
Okay, I was going to talk about calendar here. Paul, can I close this window, or do you want that open?
Oh, that's fine.
Okay. I'm going to just go to the calendar. Before, in version 14, if you wanted to enter a new calendar entry and assign it to several users or to different groups of people that you had defined, you were limited to just 6. Now, if I want to come in here and do group info, I can add up to 100, either users or groups. They've also added the box where I can just check all users. If I want this to go on all users' calendar, it will go ahead and check everybody. Or, and it also includes the group members. If I have a group defined, here's Anderson's staff, and it will actually show me who is in Anderson's staff, which is Jason, Kendra, and Ron. It did add the incremental search capability, like Paul was showing you. If I start typing in here, it will bring up, anybody that was DEF. I've got the default user. And then the size and the position of the window will it will remember that for subsequent sessions when you sign in and out. So the other thing in the calendar, it now has the ability to bring in, if you are using Outlook and integrating with PracticeMaster Calendar, Outlook had a location field. It will integrate now in PracticeMaster. There is a location field as well for your appointment. Paul?
Okay. Now,
time for your big task thing.
Yeah,
we're ready.
Big task thing. I'm always snoozing things. Mary Jo will tell you that she'll be on the phone with me. She'll be connected to my computer, and I will have 14 different alarms pop up, and I'll snooze them all for 10 minutes, and then 10 minutes later I'll snooze them again. There is now a feature that may seem rather innocuous, but it is a lifesaver to me that allows you, and I'm going to real quickly get into the task window, and I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to say that I want to be, actually I'm going to go into active alarms, and I'm going to, we'll just let this pop up in a minute. There is now a feature that when you get this pop-up that tells you you have to do something, there's still a snooze button. There's still the ability to snooze for a predetermined amount of time, but there now is a mark as complete. It used to be that you would merely clear the alarm when you were done with it. It would pop up, you'd say, oh, I just did that, you'd clear the alarm, and then it would still show up on your task list as something that you would then check off. There is now an option that I'll show you the next time it pops up, that right there on little pop-up, there's a mark as complete button that you can click on, and it will simply clear the alarm and mark the item as complete all at once. Now, that may not seem like much, but to somebody like me, that's huge. Okay, Mary Jo, I'm going to send you on to increase limits. Okay.
Before, whenever you wanted to add fields in PracticeMaster, there was a limit of 300 fields that you could add. Now that has been increased. When you go into file maintenance and you want to add a field, that has been increased to 350. So you now have 350 fields that you can have in your what am I trying to say? The client file.
In your files.
In your files.
Right.
We've also increased the history tracking file size limit from 999 megabytes to 2,000. So if you're using history tracking and you need to increase those limits, it goes up to 2,000 now. And we've increased the size of the email address field. It used to be 31 characters long. Now it's up to 50. So if you were pulling in an email from, you needed to journalize or whatever, that email address field has been expanded to 50 now.
So that now you can put something like, let's say, Paul Purdue at attorneycomputersystems.com, which wouldn't have fit before. Okay, conflict of interest, we've added a criteria page that prints at the end of the report. Basically, if you go to search for Smith and you get a big long report that shows you all the occurrences of the word Smith, you may have set certain options within it, and without knowing how you did your search, you can't tell how relevant the results are. So now, at the end of conflict of interest report, the criteria page prints that shows you exactly what you searched on and what the constraints were of that search, so that you will be able to tell what those results mean. And here it is. Here's the alarm that we've been waiting for, and I'm going to mark it complete. And when I do that, it will, if I refresh my calendar, it'll be gone because it's been marked complete at the same time. And in email preferences, if anybody's journaling email, we talked about this a couple meetings ago, if you go into Outlook, in version 14, somewhere along the line, 14.2, 14.3, they added the ability that when you journal an email, instead of popping up the whole journal item right there in Outlook, it just pops up a box that lets you select the client. And a lot of people thought that was just the greatest thing in the world. And it gave you a button to go to the details so you could see all the details of that journal record. But some people didn't think it was the greatest thing in the world. They would have an email that, hold on one second. They would have an email, when they would go to journal an email, well, I guess I can't show you this because I don't have any email in here. When they would go to journal an email, they wanted to see those details right off the bat. They didn't want to see that smaller screen that was coming up in the newly improved version 14.2 or 14.3. So STI has given those people a chance in their configuration to say, I want it to go straight to all the details when I journal an email, instead of showing me that compressed view where I can merely pick a client. Okay? Mary Jo?
Okay, the last thing that we're going to talk about today is in system configuration. There are just a few changes over there. We have added a new confirm password field. So you will be required to type in the password and then also type it in a second time to confirm it. And then the passwords are now masked. So even if you are a manager and you want to go into system configuration and look at whose passwords are what, you won't be able to see those anymore. Those are masked. I guess that is a requirement that the credit card companies had when we're now taking credit cards, that all passwords be secure. And so now, as a manager, you can change those passwords, but they will be just dots. You won't be able to see them anymore. And then they can no longer be included on the user list. So if you're printing those out and relying on that, you won't be able to see those anymore. So you're going to need to know what the passwords are and have a list of that somewhere else. And that's all I have, Paul. How about you?
That's all I have, too. Does anyone have any questions? And it wouldn't be a virtual user group meeting if I didn't ask if anybody had any lawyer jokes.
Okay, we've got one question. Well, we actually have a thank you, Paul. Just thanks.
We have a thank you.
Yeah,
we're using a new platform this month called GoToWebinar, which we got to because we were hitting the upper limits of GoToMeeting, and people were being turned away. So we now have options like raising your hand and typing in questions that we weren't using before that we now can use.
And if you signed on with the microphone and speakers and you don't have a microphone in front of you in your computer, we can't hear you, so you can use the type of question box option. Otherwise, if you're on the phone with us, we can hear you and answer your questions that way. So if anybody has a question that is logged in through mic and speakers, if you want to type a question for us, we can answer that real quick. Otherwise, if you're on the phone, we can just go ahead and...
Anybody wants to blurt out a question, we can answer that. If not, and I don't hear anything, and I don't see anything,
Nope.
I think we're done.
Nope, we got one more question, Paul.
Oh, we got one more question?
Yep, hang on. What's that?
Oh, this is exciting.
Oh, it just says bye. Never mind. Thanks, Bill.
Okay, everybody. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Or next
Bye.
month. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.